week's City View here in Quincy. As you know, if you've seen the last few shows, we've been bouncing around in different locations. And this week, with the approaching storm, we felt it was time to stop by the Public Works Department. And we're joined today by our great commissioner, Al Grazioso, who has had a number of years of service in government, but most recently as Commissioner of Public Works. And,
I know in the past, for example, sometimes some debris from the ocean gets caught in a tide gate and jams it open so the seawater backs up. So that's the kind of things they're checking for when they're out there.
Correct. Yeah, it's very important that the tide gates.
A lot of people are familiar with the tide gate at Blacks Creek at Quincy Shore Drive, but there are dozens of them all across the city that dump into the bay. So
Correct.
A lot of them have that duckbill on them, where the tide goes out and the water behind it pushes out and lets the water flow. But there's no rainwater here, so we can make sure that they're all in the closed position so the tide water doesn't back up.
Correct. Correct. Very important, Mayor.
Now, there's also the operation. I know the last several weeks you've had a number of water main breaks. And I know that, you know, your department, Peter and Mark, they do a great job on that stuff. It's no fun. I've been out and witnessed some of the work they do. You're out in the middle of the night, freezing conditions, they're down in the hole, trying to cap or fix a water main break. So the guys deserve a lot of credit. That the same could be said of the sewer crews, you know, when they're out doing that in the middle of the night. In a storm like this, we're gonna have the tree crews out as well. So, but all hands on deck, and I think that under emergency conditions, the city does very well. So, I'm going to be talking to two of you Larrys in a few minutes, but we're standing in front of the newest piece of equipment.
Beautiful piece of equipment, Mayor.
This is a Mack Snow Fighter.
Correct.
We paid how much for this?
This was probably about $160,000.
$160,000.
Yes.
What a deal, huh?
Yes.
But this gives us how many total snow fighters in the fleet then? Not all the other stuff, but purely snow fighters.
I believe this is our fourth snow fighter.
Fourth snow fighter.
Yes. Yes.
So this is replacing, some folks may have seen or read in the story about us giving Sandersfield 3 snow fighters that were 1995 vintage.
Correct.
They really had reached their life expectancy. That town could get a year or two out of them, but they weren't dependable enough for us in the main. So this is the kind of piece of equipment that's replacing those old pieces. And these are so vital for, and I know you're familiar with West Quincy Hills, Wollaston Hill, President Hill, Squantum Hills, Great Hill. I mean, these are all-wheel drive. They have the plow under the truck, the belly plow, and the plow in the front. They're very impressive, and I know they hold some serious salt on the back of them too. I think they're 8 to 10 yarders, but.
And as you mentioned, we don't realize, but when you drive around the city, we do have a number of hills. The West Quincy area going up towards the Blue Hills, the other side of the expressway, Wollaston Hill, some very steep hills.
I think of, I married a Wollaston Hill girl, so I think of Prospect Ave and Warren Ave, and those are tough hills.
Well, I grew up in Wollaston Hill, so I know well.
Yeah, those are tough, particularly Warren. Yeah, once you come down that crest, there's no stopping.
Yes.
Down to Newport. But so anyway, on the other side, I know that part of the operation you can see here is these are some of the snow equipment that handles the sidewalk work. I know that how many pieces do we have that go out on the sidewalk work during the storm?
I want to say, and I'd have to check with my superintendent, 9 pieces, I believe.
Okay. And those do a lot of the business districts. They do the snow routes.
Correct.
They don't do every sidewalk in the city, but they do around the schools, around the business areas. People are still encouraged and asked to please, you know, shovel your own sidewalk. If you've got elderly neighbors, help them out, get over and help them out. I know that in my neighborhood we have some, I don't think they consider themselves elderly, but a little older, so we try to pitch in with, you know, on our street and helping those folks out. So encourage people at home, please, to look out for your neighbor, particularly the elderly, when you're out and about. So this is one of the mechanic shops I know for your department. How many mechanics total? I know you have
We have 4 mechanics.
4 mechanics. Do excellent work.
Excellent work.
I mean, when you think
keep all
about during the storm, the stuff breaks down, they bring it in, they got to
Absolutely.
get it up and running again and keep it moving.
Yeah, and they also help some of the private contractors we hire. Their truck breaks down the road, they bring it in, our mechanics help them to
Yep.
get that back on the road during the height of a storm.
Right. Then we charge them for that, right? Well, I know, Al, you're going to be busy. I know this is going to air sometime over the weekend. The storm may be gone by the time we're on the air, but I think it's important for people to understand where your tax dollars go. Public Works is one of those major departments. Everyone talks about police, fire, and schools. Very important. That's probably what most we do. Most important thing, I should say, we do in local government. However, you know, without Public Works, none of that works. You know, firemen go to tap a hydrant. If it's not running, that doesn't help them in a fire. You know, Public Works is involved in so much as far as infrastructure goes. And I know we added recently a new city engineer, Paul Costello, who's an excellent background, outstanding background in the private sector.
Excellent employee.
Understands all the EPA and DEP regulations, so we welcome him aboard as well. So, Al, thank you for joining us today, and good luck with the storm.
Thank you.
All right. Well, I'd like to welcome Larry Levasseur to the show. Larry's general foreman in charge of the mechanic shop at Public Works, and we talked a little bit about with the commissioner a few minutes ago, Larry, about some of the responsibilities the Public Works Department has all across the city, whether it's sewer, water, drain, highway, all the infrastructure that's so involved. So your group is very, very important. I know we got some outstanding mechanics because during the course of any day, but particularly during the storms, you guys are working on these pieces of equipment, though these ones are brand new. There's a lot of older trucks out in the lot here that, you know, you hit something breaks down.
Anything's possible, anything can break.
Talk a little bit about that. So,
Plow blades wear out, they hit a manhole cover, break the blade, pins fall out, you get flat tires,
Yeah.
debris in the road, numerous things. Branches fall down, go through hoods, windshields.
most of the time they limp back to the shop with the piece of
For the most part, yeah. Sometimes we have to, I mean, we've had wheels fall off, anything's possible.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to tow them back in.
Right.
And generally we can get them running pretty quick. We have a pretty good stock set
I know
up.
we have a lot of outside contractors that help us, but citywide, how many pieces of equipment do we have out there in the height of a storm?
Citywide with the park, probably 18, 19 of our own.
19 of our own, about 130 to 40 pieces overall.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of folks that come in and supplement. I know that we have a setup, I know, during various different stages of storms.
We
There's
can
a crew that comes
handle
in, does
like
the
our main
mains.
streets
Yeah.
and all the secondaries, we need help contractors.
Right.
With all the miles in the city we have, there's no way we can
How
do
many
it.
snow routes do we have? I know we have a lot of them around the city.
30-something snow routes.
Okay, and each of those snow routes has a piece or two
Yeah,
assigned to it?
depending on the storm. 1 to 2 inch storm, you might have 1.
Yeah,
12-inch storm, you might have 3.
right. And
All
that's
depends
the
on
way
the
we're looking for
snowfall.
this one.
Yeah.
I know this is going to be aired sometime this weekend, probably
It's
after
okay.
the storm, but
It's hard fighting snow because you got to be like a weatherman. And let's face it, everybody knows they're not that accurate, and you got to be prepared for either or.
this looks like it's going to be a whopper. But I know that you say that too. It may be raining in Howe's Neck, and you might have 4 inches of snow in West Quincy.
And vice versa.
Right, right.
Depending on the weather, we have nothing in the hills. Sometimes on the coast gets really bad,
Right.
depending on which way the wind blows in.
So you guys adjust. For the most part, it's the same guys on the same routes, though. They
Yeah,
know
we
the
try
routes.
to.
Yeah,
We try to put the same guy, same route, same truck.
yeah.
That way everybody becomes familiar with that part of the city. And it's a lot easier on the truck because they know where if there's a pothole or there's a raised manhole cover.
Right.
Some
construction
have
going on.
islands that disappear in the snow. If you don't know where the island is, that can cause a lot of damage
Sure,
and
sure.
ruin your truck.
And we're standing in front of some of the newer fleet.
Yep, these are brand new.
This is
Yep, fried.
2015,
Yep,
16,
216s and a 17.
17. That's the twin to the one we just saw with
Yep.
the commissioner. So these are pure snow fighters. These aren't used for anything else but snow
Nope, all they
fighters.
use for is snow.
And then we're going out in the yard shortly with Superintendent Prentival. The dump trucks get turned into
Dump trucks, yep.
they
There's sanders in the wintertime, and come spring, the sanders come off, and we use them as dump trucks.
And I know sometimes it gets tricky because you start your sweeping.
Well, we've
You
done that.
gotta flip it back and
Like
forth.
this year we were lagging behind, and it was quick to turn everything over, which it works out, especially being new.
I know off to our left here, Larry, there's 2 of our sweepers that are in full force during the good weather.
Yep, these
Even
are
in the
some-
winter when it's not too cold and there's no snow on the ground, we do the business districts, correct?
Correct, we do them all year round.
And these are beautiful machines, the Elgin. They're pretty dependable, but they need maintenance too. I mean, you constantly
These
change
are
your
high
brushes
maintenance.
and-
There's a lot of bearings, a lot of greasable parts. There's
Yeah.
a lot of wearable parts that can go in these. You got to keep up on them.
Now, the last few years, and I'm grateful to the city council for supporting the appropriations, but we have been getting a lot of newer equipment, and
Yes.
I think that's huge. It's important to be able to fight the snow, to be able to deal with the conditions.
Well, it's a lot less downtime, and people don't realize when you get an older truck, you just keep dumping more money into it, and it doesn't help it any.
Right.
It doesn't make it any newer,
Right.
and you got to cut a loss sooner or later.
So it's important to maintain and keep up with the fleet.
Because especially these sweepers, they're very, very high maintenance.
Yeah. Well, they do a good job. One of the comments I get a lot from folks visiting our city is they're impressed with how clean the city is. That means a lot to me, and that's really a compliment to all the guys at Public Works that work hard on that every day. So we appreciate that. So Larry, thanks for
you.
letting me pop into the shop, and thank
Thank
the
you, Mr.
guys
Mayor.
for all the good work they do. Now I'm joined by Superintendent of Public Works, Larry Prendeville. Larry's a Quincy boy. God, I remember your father working at the old Quincy Lumber Company.
Right,
a long time
right,
ago.
right around the
Right down
corner,
the street.
right? Yep.
So a lot of history with the Prendevilles and Healy's in Quincy.
Yes. Yep.
We're standing actually in front of the what do we call this? The salt shed.
This is the salt shed. This shed here holds about 5,500 ton of salt. This is the new shed. Replaced the old shed which is across there.
But this was a big deal for us. I mean, we had the smaller shed across the way, and then we've kept stuff outside. The
Right.
stuff that gets outside, when the weather hits it, you certainly lose efficiency, you lose some of the product.
Exactly. So what we've done, we installed this one. The stuff that you see over here, we brought in for this storm,
Yeah.
knowing that we're going to be having some issues. So we always want to try to keep this as full as we possibly can.
Yeah, I know we chat about that during the course of the year, I know.
Salt is a very big issue.
Well, I know that a few years back, Commissioner Mondi was here with us for a number of years, and the decision was made to stop using the sand.
Correct.
Because the sand gets into the storm drains, it fills up the storm drains, it creates other issues, so we're going to straight salt for the most part. And quite frankly, you know, I say this not being fresh, but people are spoiled today. I'm not that, a little younger than you, but we're not that old. But I remember as a kid, every side street had snow cover on it all winter long.
Correct.
Today, every street is expected to be black the minute the storm is over.
The expectation is black, and it's very costly. It's time consuming, but
It's also, and this is the balance, public safety first. So we want to make sure that people can navigate the city, that emergency vehicles can get around when somebody is in need of help. We'll make sure
Correct.
we can get to, and I think we can say with great pride that's done in every storm.
yes,
Having said that, I know we've gone through some schooling with the application of salt. Salt is a good thing to be able to use in a storm, but it also has its negative aspects. When there's too much salt, it starts to corrode the road, it corrodes the storm
the
drains.
infrastructure. Correct.
It kills the trees and the loam borders, so it has a negative impact, clearly. So we're trying to be a little more cognizant of using the salt where it should be, in the crown of the road. It migrates to the side. I know that we've talked about this over the years too. You know, sometimes the cowboy driver's flying down the street and the spinner's going and it's hitting the
Correct.
sidewalk, and it's all waste, and then it's killing the trees and so forth on the sideline. So I know you've instituted some new policies this year in that regard. I appreciate that. We'll also save money in the long run because that salt that's wasted, and I would guess it's much as a third from
Correct.
the storm, is down the drain, literally, and that's wasted money down the drain. So we try to strike the balance, public safety first, but also be cognizant of this is the taxpayers' money. We're spending it wisely and using great efficiencies where we can to make sure we're stretching the dollar as best we can. I talked to Larry and Al a little bit, and we talked a little bit about the amount of pieces that'll be out. And I know there's a lot of snow routes across the city. And you have a plan. I know you and Ed Leary and Larry Levasseur, of course, with Commissioner Grazioso. There's so many routes, but depending on the storm, you adjust the equipment. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Correct. What we'll do is, if it's a minor storm, if it's, say, a coating to an inch, we'll bring in maybe 18 pieces.
Yeah.
And we'll divide them up amongst routes. We'll hit our mains, we'll do the hills. We won't do the flats, we won't do dead ends, stuff like that. As the storm builds, then we'll bring in more pieces. In a storm like this, it's everything we put out. So there's about 130 plus pieces that we're putting out on this type storm.
So every route has,
two pieces.
Two pieces, okay.
Two pieces.
and it's not just the old days of just a small pickup.
No,
although
no.
Some of the small streets, we need the smaller truck, but every route has a larger truck to be able to push it.
And every 95% of the routes have a sander in them. So they have a plow sander that can put down material as needed, and they'll either have another plow with it or a backhoe with it to box the corners. You know, what we try to do is we try to strive to go curb to curb. You know, having people remove their cars off the side of the street helps us a lot.
I know we'll be talking about that over the next day or so, letting people know the importance of getting your car off the street. Even if you're not required to, say you're on the odd side this year, which is the side you can park, if you got room in the driveway, get the cars in the driveway, get them off the street, because as I understand the forecast, we're going to have basically a flash freeze
Right.
as soon as the storm is over. So if we don't get it pushed back, it's going to be solid as concrete to try to move it.
Correct, and then we'll be, for the next 4 or 5 days, we'll be chasing it, and that's when we start going through the material and all that stuff. So the more people get their vehicles off the road, hopefully the better job we can do.
And I know I met with you guys earlier. We had the police chief, the fire chief, representatives from Brewster Ambulance, the school department, making sure everybody's working together, public buildings. I was talking to Paul Hines. You know, when you have outages, you know, they got to watch the buildings for pipe breaks and,
Yep.
and snow buildup on the roofs. So there's a lot of pieces to
There's
it
a lot
when
of
it comes
there's
to
a lot of moving parts.
and no pun intended, right?
Right.
But in addition to the snow, and I know we'll probably come back on the good weather. You know, I mentioned earlier, talking to the commissioner, Public Works really is so important to the infrastructure of any community. In Public Works in Quincy, we've got sewer, water, drain, highway divisions. We oversee, obviously, the snow, oversee rubbish pickup.
Engineering.
Engineering, of course. We talked about Paul Costello coming on board. I guess
He's been a phenomenal asset.
yes, we're thrilled with his abilities and knowledge, along with our outside vendors. So, you know, police, fire, schools, all those things are important. But keeping the water running, the sewers running, the drains working. I talked a little bit about Al. The crews were out yesterday and today, making sure all the tide gates are
Correct.
shut and working order, so that we don't have the seawater backing up. We'll be watching closely the splash over. I know some of the sections that we have trouble with. And certainly we'll be watching for power outages. And Forestry Department, part of the Park Department, is also going to be out and about with some outside vendors in case of any emergency tree calls. So that's always an issue when you get these kind of winds. So, Larry, it's I know extra salt is outside. That stuff will be used first because it's outside.
That gets used first.
Walk a little bit.
That salt will go first.
Yep.
And
Talk a little bit about this magic salt that we refer to. People don't understand what that may be outside.
so in this other shed, we have what we call magic salt. It's treated salt that we purchase from Eastern Minerals. That will work in temperatures under 15 degrees.
Okay.
You know, this salt here, you know, after 20 degrees, it's starting to lose its
Effectiveness.
yeah, and you're putting down more salt.
So my guess is that's a lot more expensive.
That is a lot more expensive.
Yeah.
And we're very fortunate that Eastern Minerals has come down to the Quincy shipyard. By them doing that, we're saving about $6 a ton just having them here in the city. Plus
From the hauling cost?
From the hauling. And before we would always have issues not having enough salt. Now we have plenty of salt. So.
You never seem to have enough salt, Larry.
No, Commissioner Grazioso has issues with that. So
Is the magic salt, would you say it's double in cost, or is it
it's about a third more.
third more? Okay. And I know that we've instituted the last several years. I know that my brother Joe worked with you guys for a number of
Yes,
years on a
yes.
snow operation, and
Yeah.
he was big on the brining.
Yeah, so
I think that was,
actually Joe was the one who brought brining into the city.
Yeah.
And initially there was a lot of pushback. People thought he was crazy putting down water on the street, but it definitely works.
So people that are watching this, brining is a
brining
salt
is
mixed
salt.
with water.
It's 23% salt,
Yeah.
and the rest of it's water.
The
It
idea
works.
is
It's a bond breaker, so it's a bonding agent we put down the road, and it prevents. We can get up to a coating to an inch, and it buys us time, and then we're not using the salt. So
Helps it from keeping that initial freeze.
exactly,
So
and you won't get a pack as much of a pack.
yeah.
When he did that, he also looked into we can add magnesium into the brine. So if we do have pack, if we don't have enough of the magic salt or we don't use the magic salt, we can use the brine with the mag, and it helps cut the pack.
you guys
as
are
well.
chemists.
A year or so ago, you instituted the no salt zone up in the square, and now we're brining while we're plowing up there. We're not salting at all. And we brought in an expert from UMass Amherst, and he was very excited when he heard that. And there's only one other person that he knows in the world doing that, and a gentleman over in Germany.
Probably a cousin.
I think it's probably a long lost relative of yours. Not many people will be doing that. I mean, there's two of you out there now, but it works. You know, it does work. And you know, like I said, there was initial pushback by a bunch of us, but Joe was, you know, always on the forefront of those kind of things. And you know, as you walked around here today, I was thinking if he ever saw the equipment, you know, he didn't have that equipment when he started here. He had the old Walters, and he would tell you stories about, you know, there was no heat, there was no defroster, he'd have to have a candle.
Well, then everything was standard. So as a kid, I remember driving with him, and this goes to the other drivers at the time too. So you're operating the vehicle, you're operating the plow mechanism, you're operating the dial for the salter. It's a knack to it, you know. It's not easy.
These new pieces we bought, we're very, very, very fortunate to have them, and they are the forefront of all technology. They're like driving a Cadillac now. They're compared to what those guys had to endure before.
Yeah.
So we're very lucky.
Well, you say Cadillac, that has a negative terminology to it, but it's also the positive side. We buy the best so it lasts. I mean, the equipment, the Max, these snow fighters, they're the best in the line.
Absolutely.
We'll get 20 years out of them.
We definitely will get 20 years. You got that out of the other one. So they need to be maintained, and with proper maintenance, they will be. I mean, we could have bought a lesser.
We got a great mechanic shop, I know.
Absolutely, the guys do a great job. They were the ones who kept some of the 93s going.
Yeah.
So we have one 93 left that we're dealing with, but you know, under your leadership, we're very fortunate with the equipment since I've been here.
Well, that's a good cue for me again to say thank you to the City Council for supporting the appropriations. Thank you to the guys in the field. I mean, the guys are, you know, they're leaving their homes, their warm homes, they're coming in to get it done for the city. And that's whether it's a plowing operation, salting, that could be water breaks, sewer backups. You know, these guys do a great job. So we're grateful for all the work they do. So thank them, and thanks to them and their families for all the good work. And hopefully this weekend will turn out okay. We'll have everything up and running as quick as we possibly can, and hopefully no incidents where anybody gets hurt. So Larry, thanks for all you do for the city.
Thank you very much.
Good luck. Well, I'm now joined by Mark Falpando. Mark has been with the city how long? How many years?
29 years,
29
man.
years. General foreman. The water department does an outstanding job. And we're just talking to Larry Prendeville and Commissioner Grazioso and Larry Levasseur about the snow operation. But I also talked a little bit about, you know, the water main issues and sewer issues. But I know with this kind of cold, we're just chatting a little bit about what your department is dealing with on days like this.
Sure.
Talk a little bit about that.
Days like this, during that cold snap, we had a lot of pipe failures. We had a lot of homes froze, so we're dealing with a lot of issues. We were dealing with a water main break on Colby Road last week.
Yeah.
But right now, the crews are still out trying to get restore water services to some of these homes that froze.
Does it freeze inside or on the outside, or
Typically, it's a combination. Okay. Typically, they freeze inside. Where the meter is, it's not heated properly, so it freezes from the. But it can also freeze from the ground up. The cold air gets down if a water service is not down below the frost depth.
Right.
So
now, water mains, I know there's all kinds of causes. Sometimes if there's a change in pressure, sometimes the ground is moving, whether it's freezing or thawing. I know we've got some unstable ground throughout the city where not everything is on piles. So you find it spring and fall are heavier because of the movement of the ground, or is it pretty consistent throughout the winter?
I find in the summertime we have a lot of breaks too. We have little pressure fluctuations. More people are using water. There's more on and off hydrant use and everything. We we noticed Boston had a big water main break the other night, and that made us a little nervous. And we figured something would come up down the line after. And sure enough, we had our water main break.
Yeah.
So we figure with them, you know, isolating their leaks and everything, we're at the end of the line, as everybody knows, and, you know.
Do you have any tips for homeowners? I know I got a weak pipe in my house, so this kind of weather, I let the water run a little bit during the course of the night.
If you can let the water run to a trickle, so keep it going, but you also have to, this goes especially for people with forced hot water, like hydronic heat, you have to keep those zones up high. You have to keep them up at least 68 degrees. Don't turn them down. A lot of people will leave like a room and they don't use that room, so they'll put the thermostat down too low. Cold air will come in, freeze their pipes, and it's just a mess.
Well, and to add to that, with what they're projecting for this weekend for drops in temperatures, it makes sense to push it up because if you lose power, you're going to lose some heat for a while.
Right.
So if you have it up a little higher, you have that much more time.
That's right, and you want to make sure that you have no air leaks. You want to, we're going to a lot of homes, and what we're discovering is like there's a window that's cracked and it's leaking. And all it takes is a little pinhole of air in this type of weather against that water service, and it can freeze it.
Well, Mark, appreciate your service and all the guys. I know they work so hard, particularly in these tough winter conditions.
It's all the guys, man. These guys are working day and night, and these ladies. It's a good crew down here, and they're here
to serve the city and everybody else.
We appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Thanks.